Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly into the whistling winds of the Eurasian steppe, endless, frozen, and echoing with the distant rumble of hooves. You're curled beneath a fur blanket that smells like wet yak, and regret your fingers numb, even though you're tucked in as tightly as the camp allows. The stars above are pitiless, frozen pinpricks in a sky too wide, too ancient to care about your shivers. The camp is waking. Slowly, brutally, and you're about to find out why the phrase war camp never includes the word comfort. You probably won't survive this, not even half a day. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop your location and the local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're all listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't wake up to the gentle chime of an alarm clock. No bird song either. Instead, it's the sting of cold so sharp it could cut parchment, seeping in through seams in the hide-walled jair you sleep in. Your feet are wrapped in rough felt, and your face is pressed against a shared sleeping mat that reeks of unwashed bodies and old mutton. You blink, and the sun hasn't even cracked the horizon, but movement has already begun. The grumble of warriors, the clink of metal, the urgent rustle of someone preparing fermented mare's milk over a tiny, dung-fed flame. Your blanket is yanked away before you can even pretend to stretch. A boy, barely older than you but already broader across the shoulders, barks something in Mongolic. You don't understand yet, but the gesture is universal. Get up or get hit. You've already learned that ignoring anyone's tone out here, even a child's, is a fast track to pain. The first thing that hits your senses is the smell. It's not exactly foul, but it's strong sweat leather fire animals, and a curious sweet-sour tang that clings to everything fermented airag. The only thing anyone drinks around here unless snow melts fast. You try to sit up, but your muscles ache from the hard sleep and the persistent cold that turns your joints into splinters. You don't get a moment to collect yourself. Someone shoves a bowl into your hands, wooden-stained and vaguely sticky. Inside is a thin broth with chewy lumps of something you hope is meat. A grizzled old man snarls something while pointing to it, then gestures upward to the pre-dawn sky. You assume it's a warning. Eat before the sun rises, or else. So you gulp it down, ignoring the way it scalds your tongue. It's your first lesson in Mongol nutrition survival doesn't care about your taste buds. There's no bread, no honey, and certainly no tea. Just calories. And maybe, if you're lucky, no parasites this time. The camp is arranged like a living creature constantly shifting and adjusting. The gurs form loose clusters around central fires, and everywhere you look, children like you are hauling saddles, sharpening arrows, or dragging frozen dung for fuel. You realize with a chill, pun intended, that you're the only one standing around confused. And that's not a good look. Someone throws you a leather tunic, stiff as a plank. You wrestle it on, and it scrapes like sandpaper. No one waits for you to finish dressing. The boys your age are already leading the horses out of the crude corral, brushing frost from their manes, checking hooves. You stumble over to join them, trying to look useful. A man with a braided beard and a nose that's clearly been broken multiple times points to you and then to a shaggy little gelding that looks like it bites. You approach carefully. the horse is all muscle and suspicion. You whisper something like, "Please don't kill me," as you reach for the reins. The horse responds by snorting directly in your face. Warm, disgusting, somehow comforting. Suddenly, a whistle shrieks across the clearing. Everyone freezes, then pivots. A rider enters the camp tall on a thick-chested stallion cloaked in wolf pelts. He isn't shouting, but everyone listens. You catch bits of his speech your language classes haven't started yet, but fear is a pretty universal dialect. You understand just enough drills begin in 10 minutes. Miss it, and your food gets halved. Great. Historically speaking, this daily rhythm wasn't just about discipline. The Mongols weren't merely horsemen, they were the horsemen. Their empire spread from Korea to Hungary in less than a century, and it wasn't because they hit snooze buttons in the morning. Genghis Khan's training regimen for child soldiers was legendary equal parts brutal efficiency and psychological conditioning. Boys were expected to live in the saddle sleep in their armor and hunt or die trying. And by boys, we mean kids under 10. You unfortunately are a very average 8. Back in camp, a girl your age smirks as she tosses you a pair of stiff boots that look like they belong to a corpse. You pull them on and try to run after the others heading to the clearing only to trip and fall face first into a half-frozen puddle of horse pee. Delightful. Nobody laughs. That's almost worse. As the sky lightens barely enough to make out the camp's full sprawl, the drills begin. You line up with the others, most of them stocky wiry and already used to this life. You stand out like a sore foreign thumb, which is fair because you're probably a captured steppe orphan or the tribute child of a vassal clan. Your presence here is not voluntary. Historians still argue whether children in Mongol war camps were trained from loyalty fear or sheer practicality. But one thing is certain, no one cares about your backstory. You're either useful or you're in the way. The first hour is spent doing lunges, on ice, barehanded. One kid throws up and an older boy steps over the mess without slowing down. You lose feeling in your toes by the third lap around the makeshift perimeter fence. A goat bleats mockingly at you as you wheeze past it. And then come the horses again. Mounted drills for children are the Mongol equivalent of elementary school. You're expected to be able to mount from a standstill, control the animal with your knees, and fire a bow all at once. You're barely able to stay seated. Your horse takes 2 steps and bucks. You land flat on your back, winded. Above you, the sky is brightening. You don't feel any warmer. A shadow falls across your face. The older boy from earlier is standing over you. He says something that you don't understand, but hands you your bow. It's bent, slightly cracked. You're told later that it's a test. Everyone breaks something their first day. What matters is whether you fix it or quit. You drag yourself up. Your ribs hurt. Your pride hurts worse. But you're starting to see the rhythm. It's cruel, yes, but it's patterned, ritualized. Even the cruelty has a logic here. Oh, and the quirky fact for tonight. The Mongols apparently used sheep bladders as canteens. Lightweight, collapsible, and only slightly horrifying. You learn quickly that your name doesn't matter here. Not just because nobody can pronounce it, not that they're trying, but because the very idea of individual identity seems laughable in this place. Whatever name you came with from your birth tribe, or maybe the village you barely remember before being traded or captured, is gone, vanished. washed away like muddy footprints in a spring thaw. Now, your new name, if you can even call it that, is Orlok. It means something like scout or runt, or maybe just expendable. It's barked at you when you drop your arrows. It's hissed at you when you're slow to saddle up. One boy snickers and tells you it also means dung bag, but you don't have the linguistic confidence yet to argue. And honestly, it feels right. At least one boy in the camp has the same name. So do 3 dogs. It's fine. You'll answer to anything if it means less punishment. The man who gave you the name is called Batu. He's built like a yurt pole scarred like a map and as warm as a slab of winter stone. He doesn't smile, doesn't explain things twice, and never speaks louder than necessary, which somehow makes him more terrifying than any screamer. He's your trainer, or maybe handler is more accurate. He watches you like you're a semi-feral horse waiting to bolt, bite, or break. He tells you what to do through gestures and glares. Stand here. Carry that. Don't touch this. And especially don't ask questions. You learn fast, mostly because you have no other option. Every mistake costs you something lunch sleep skin. One of the first things he has you do is take off every single item you're wearing. Everything. Even your lucky amulet. Especially your amulet. He tosses it into the fire like it's nothing, and you can't even protest. Not unless you want to find out how much colder this camp gets at night. Then he starts over. You're given new clothes, if clothes is even the right word. A shirt that's really just a length of cloth stitched with twine. A pair of trousers 2 sizes too big. A belt made from dried horsehide. No shoes yet, you have to earn those. And no knife. Definitely no knife. You'll get one of those when the camp no longer thinks you'll use it on yourself. As you shuffle awkwardly in your new gear, Batu pulls out a bundle of carved sticks and throws them at your feet. They're practice arrows blunted at the tips but heavy enough to bruise. He gestures to a post some 20 paces away and utters a single word. Shoot. The bow they give you is not yours. Nothing is yours. It's a training bow unstrung, and when you fumble to string it with freezing fingers, several older boys nearby howl with laughter. You're not alone. Another new arrival, a wiry boy from the west, fumbles even worse. He manages to snap his bowstring and gets a swift cuff to the ear from Batu so hard he crumples like old felt. You watch that, take a shaky breath, and manage to string yours on the second try. Historians still argue whether Mongol training was meant to toughen or traumatize. The line blurs easily out here. Is this boot camp or psychological warfare? Maybe both. Genghis Khan himself had no formal education, but he built an empire on the backs of boys like you, nameless, sleepless, half-starved shadows molded into weapons. You don't just ride or shoot. You become a weapon, eventually, if you survive. You don't get praise when you finally hit the post. Just another arrow, another shot, and another. Eventually, your arms ache so badly that the bow wobbles in your grip like jelly. Still, they tell you to keep going. Not with words, but with the terrifying silence of indifference. One of the stranger facts you learn today, besides how to tie your belt using only your teeth, is about your future haircut. Apparently, you'll eventually get the infamous Mongol knot. It's shaved everywhere but the crown where a patch of hair is left to grow long and greasy. Why? Some say it's so your comrades can grab you if you fall in battle. Others say it's symbolic, like leaving a handle for your ancestors to drag your spirit up to the eternal blue sky. For now, your hair remains a shaggy mess, but you know your time is coming. As the sun climbs, the day gets warmer, not warm, but above freezing, and that's considered a luxury. Batu leads your group to the nearby river, half-thawed and sluggish. You're told to bathe. Yes, in that. With no soap. Just ice-cold water and judgment. You strip again. Nobody looks. Nobody cares. You're not special here. You're not even particularly interesting. And honestly, it's almost a relief. The water stings like a slap. You gasp, but try not to scream. The boy next to you hisses out an entire string of curses in a language you don't understand, but fully support. Afterward, you dry off with your shirt. You'll be wearing it anyway, so what does it matter if it's wet? By midday, you've stopped thinking of yourself as a person with dreams or preferences. You're a body that moves when kicked, eats when allowed, and tries not to fall asleep standing up. Lunch is a communal affair, if you can call it that. Everyone sits around a fire scooping handfuls of boiled millet and dried mutton from a central pot. No spoons. No plates. The fire smells better than the food tastes, but it fills your stomach. Barely. One boy tries to pocket an extra handful and gets smacked across the back with a ladle. The cook, a tiny woman with arms like iron rods, doesn't say a word. She just dares anyone else to try. You don't. The rest of the day is more drills, more bows, more bruises. You learn how to take a hit and how not to flinch. That last one's harder. Every time someone lunges toward you, joking or not, you jerk like a rabbit. It's instinct, but it's also dangerous. Fear is seen as weakness, and weakness is contagious, like lice. And speaking of lice, you have them now. Everyone does. It's sort of a rite of passage. By the time night falls, you're not even tired, you're numb. Physically, emotionally, spiritually. You crawl into the communal jerrigan, too sore to think, too hungry to care. Someone farts. No one laughs. Before you drift off, one last thought flickers in your brain. They didn't even ask my name. And they never will. You scratch your scalp, feel something crawl and sigh. Tomorrow, you get to learn how to scrape the muck out of your saddle with a carved stick. Living the dream. Sleep doesn't offer much relief. You lie stiffly between two other boys who both snore like they're trying to win a contest wrapped in a shared fur that smells like old cheese and wet dog. The jeer creaks as the wind picks up outside, howling like something alive. One of the older boys mumbles in his sleep something about arrows and blood, and elbows you squarely in the ribs. You wheeze curl tighter and try not to take it personally. Everyone here is dreaming of war because everyone here is training for it. When morning comes, though, you wouldn't know it by the dim gray light. You're already half awake, your back sore and your eyes gummy. There's no breakfast bell, just the sound of hooves clopping past the tent, the occasional bark of a command, and someone hacking up what might be a lung. Batu appears in the doorway, just a silhouette, but somehow still judgmental. He points at you, then flicks his fingers toward the training grounds. It's not even dawn. Of course. You stagger outside, rubbing your face with your sleeve. The first thing you're handed isn't food or water. It's a chunk of something that looks and feels like stone. Dried meat so tough it could double as roofing material. You gnaw at it uselessly, while standing in the cold, your jaw already sore from the effort. breakfast, says one of the older boys with a grin that has one too many missing teeth to feel reassuring. You chew slower, partly because your mouth's full of questions. Like, is this cooked and is this meat? Probably. Possibly. Who knows? It might have been horse sheep goat or, considering the salty tang yak. Or maybe all of the above mashed together and sun-dried into jerky that could outlive dynasties. The Mongols believed in food as fuel. Calories were sacred, taste was optional. You weren't here to develop a palate. You were here to learn how to fight, survive, and move fast. And moving fast means food that doesn't rot, doesn't spill, and won't attract flies, or at least not more flies than usual. So your breakfast consists of rock-hard meat and a ladleful of sour mare's milk that makes your stomach gurgle ominously. You force it down, all of it. There's no second helping, no special order for picky eaters, no complaining to the waiter. This isn't a cafe. It's a war camp. And you're not a guest, you're the mop. Somewhere in the distance you hear the low rhythm of hooves, not the scattered noise of training drills. This is different, heavier, more organized. Batu growls a word you don't know and waves everyone toward the main clearing. You follow instinctively now like a duckling chasing the biggest boots. And then you see them. Warriors. Real ones. Not shirtless skinny boys or grumpy half-drunk trainers. These are mounted men in full gear lamellar armor gleaming with frost fur-lined helmets crested with feathers or horsehair. Their horses look bred for the apocalypse, short, strong, and terrifyingly fast. And unlike your jittery training ponies, these horses don't blink when people yell. They barely breathe. Machines disguised as animals. They circle the clearing once, then halt in a synchronized clatter. The lead rider dismounts. He wears a cloak the color of dried blood, and his face is a patchwork of scars and sun. He doesn't speak loudly, but when he does, everyone shuts up. He begins inspecting the trainees. His eyes skim over each child like they're cattle. He pauses on a few nods, once frowns at others. When he reaches you, he stops completely. You try to stand straighter. You fail. The dried meat in your stomach churns. He says something to Batu. Batu answers. The man looks you up and down, then reaches out and flicks your earlobe. Hard. You yelp before you can stop yourself. He grunts, then walks on. The others snicker. A few mimic the yelp. You burn with shame, but there's nothing to do but clench your fists and swallow it. Historically, these inspections were deadly serious. Visiting commanders or nobles might pick promising children to serve directly under them, which meant better food, better training, and possibly even survival. But it also meant more danger. Some boys were chosen at 8 or 9 to serve as scouts or couriers during actual battles. No protective bubble, no training wheels, just go there, don't die. You weren't picked today. You're not sure if that's good or bad. Training resumes with wrestling. Not the theatrical kind, real wrestling. Buk, the traditional Mongol style. It's brutal. No weight classes, no soft mats, no mercy. You're thrown into a match against a boy twice your size who immediately tackles you like a wild boar. You land flat, your wind knocked out, and the older boys cheer not for you, obviously. You try to get up. He plants a knee in your chest. You wheeze. He grins. You lose, someone says. No one helps you up. You eventually roll onto your side and crawl to your knees. Batu watches unmoved. Then he nods and calls over the next pair. You dust yourself off. Every part of you hurts, but you don't cry. You're learning that pain is currency here. You spend it daily and collect none of it back. What matters is whether you show the ledger. Later that afternoon, archery resumes. You're getting better. Your shots hit closer to the center post now. You can string your bow in under 5 seconds. One boy even nods at you approvingly. That's basically a trophy. But your fingers are bleeding. You forgot to wrap them. Again. There's a trick they say goat hide strips tied around the knuckles. But no one gives you those. You have to earn them, or make them, or steal them. The line between those options is extremely blurry. While resting between drills, a few boys gather around the fire and talk. Well, grunt and joke mostly. You catch only pieces of it. Someone mentions a horse that ate a man's hat. Another claims his uncle saw a dragon near the mountains. You try to join in. You say something about clouds shaped like wolves. They laugh. Not with you. Still, one of them tosses you a spare hide to wrap your fingers. No words, just a flick of the wrist. You nod, grateful beyond reason. Quirky fact of the day, Mongol warriors were said to be so used to riding that they could sleep in the saddle. Literally nap while galloping. Some accounts even say they trained children by tying them to horses overnight. Whether that's true or just a legend, meant to terrify their enemies, historians still argue. But out here it feels believable. Nothing seems too extreme. You're already doing things your past self would have fainted over. As night falls again, you're limping but proud. You didn't cry today. You didn't vomit. You hit the post 3 times. That's progress. Inside someone's boiled bones for broth. The air is thick with steam and the faint scent of ash. You sip the soup and feel a little human again. Until someone elbows you in the ribs. Again. You wake to something pressing on your chest. Not dread, though there's plenty of that. No. This time it's a hoof. Your assigned horse, the same shaggy brute from before, has stuck its snout through the partially open flap of the jeer and stepped on you. It snorts, drools a bit, then backs off with the practiced indifference of an animal that knows it can do whatever it wants. You unfortunately cannot. Outside, it's snowing. Not a soft, dreamy snowfall like the ones in picture books. This is steppe snow, horizontal stinging, mixed with fine sand that sneaks into every fold of your clothes. You've been told today is your first mounted lesson. Real riding. Not the wobbly circle stuff from before. And not in an arena either, because arenas don't exist out here. Just frozen plains, unpredictable terrain, and the occasional marmot hole big enough to snap your neck. You hobble out of the GR joints, stiff knees, sore arms striped in fresh bruises. Batu's already waiting with the other boys. He doesn't even glance at you. He just gestures to the horses, then to the open land. It's not even a command anymore. It's a suggestion you'd be insane to refuse. Your horse, let's call him Demon with Hooves. Eyes you like he remembers you failing to mount him yesterday. You approach, slowly reins in hand, muttering every compliment you know. He responds by farting. Majestically. Somehow you manage to get on. It takes 3 tries and a handful of hair yanks, but you're up. Barely. The saddle creaks under you, poorly cushioned and wide, pressing against parts of you that were never meant to be pressed. Your feet don't even reach the stirrups properly yet. Batu gives a low whistle, and suddenly everyone is moving. You panic. The other boys gallop forward as one. You try to follow, but your horse has other plans. He trots, then halts, then turns in a lazy circle like he's looking for a spot to lie down. You squeeze your knees. Nothing. You yell. Nothing. You slap his side. He bolts. You shriek immediately, regretting all of your life decisions, and cling to the pommel like a drowning man grabbing driftwood. The wind stings your eyes, and the landscape blurs as you bounce helplessly with every stride. Your legs flail, your balance wavers, and your breakfast makes a quiet attempt to stage a mutiny. The others are dots ahead of you now. You're not even part of the lesson anymore. You're just a cautionary tale in motion. Eventually, your horse slows out of boredom more than obedience and stops near a low ridge. You slide off ungracefully and collapse into the snow gasping. Somewhere behind you, Batu trots up, dismounts, and stares down. No words, just disappointment in human form. He nods toward the horse, then gestures a riding motion. You groan. Loudly. The day doesn't get easier. You spend hours practicing mounted turns, speed control emergency dismounts, most of which you fail. You fall. A lot. Your knees are soon black and blue, your elbows scraped raw, and your dignity buried somewhere in a snowdrift. And then comes archery. Yes, from horseback. They don't expect you to hit anything yet, but they do expect you to stay mounted while shooting, which is its own nightmare. Holding the bow steady while trotting feels like trying to draw while bouncing on a trampoline. You shoot wildly, your arrows landing nowhere near the target. One even hits a dung pile, which earns a half smile from an older boy. Progress. You're told, through gestures mostly, that this is essential. Mongol warriors were famous for being able to fire with deadly accuracy while moving at full gallop. They had shoot backward sideways even under their horses' necks. It wasn't a trick, it was battle doctrine. And you're expected to learn it before you hit puberty. Historians still debate how much of this mounted archery was instinct versus training. But here in this camp, you don't get to debate. You just do. By mid-afternoon, your thighs are trembling, your fingers are numb, and your horse looks more annoyed than tired. You try to dismount, but your legs won't cooperate. So you kind of roll off land in a pile of slush and stay there for a moment, savoring the stillness. Batu walks over and tosses a hunk of bread at your head. Not soft bread. Bread shaped like a brick and probably older than you. You eat it anyway. One of the younger boys plops down beside you, his own bow slung over his shoulder. He doesn't speak your language either, but he taps his chest and says, "Bector." Then he points at you. "Orlok," you mutter. You've given up correcting people. Bector shrugs and takes a bite of his bread. You sit in silence together, two half-frozen kids with bruised ribs and cracked lips. He pulls out a carved bone. It's smooth polished, shaped like a tiny animal, a wolf maybe. He hands it to you, then makes a howling gesture. You mimic it badly. He laughs. You hand it back. He shakes his head. Keeps laughing. The wolf stays in your hand. It's your first gift. You don't realize until later how rare that is. Everything here is earned, fought for, or stolen. Gifts are not common. But sometimes, between beatings and blisters, you get a moment like this. Later that evening, after one final round of wrestling drills where you nearly dislocate your shoulder, you're allowed to help tend the horses. It's considered a privilege, apparently. You're handed a stiff, bristled brush and told to clean the mud and snow from the animal's flanks. It's dirty, smelly work, but weirdly peaceful. One horse, yours, of course, tries to bite you, twice, but the others tolerate your presence. You hum to yourself as you work. A tune from your old village, maybe. Or maybe one you're inventing just to keep your thoughts occupied. As you scrape ice from a hoof, an older stable hand mutters something nearby about horse spirits. You only catch a few words, but the gist is clear horses are sacred here. Not pets, not tools, companions, symbols, even when they try to kick you. That night you lie in the jeer, too sore to sleep. The bone wolf is in your pocket. Your knees throb. Your fingers blister. Your pride has multiple fractures. And yet, you're still here. Not thriving. Not even surviving well. But not broken. Not yet. Quirky fact, for today, Mongol kids learned to ride so early that some were on horseback before they could walk. It's said that a child could draw a bow before saying full sentences. Whether that's literal or just exaggerated praise, it's part of the legend, and you unfortunately are now part of that legend's footnote. Tomorrow, you hear the games begin. The next morning, you find out what games means in a Mongol war camp. Spoiler, it doesn't involve teams' laughter or winners who get little gold medals. No, these are the Kar Toglul II, the Black Games. Equal parts entertainment and unspoken trial where children prove they belong by bruising each other until someone can't get up. You're told nothing in advance. No rules, no teams. Just a whistle, a grunt from Batu, and the unmistakable shift in the air when every child in the training yard forms a rough circle buzzing with anticipation. It's like a festival. If festivals featured preteen brawls and bloodied noses, you're nudged into the center of the ring. So is Vector. At first, you think there's been a mistake. You're the newest. He's your only friend. Surely they won't make you fight him. They do. Of course they do. You're both handed wooden staffs, light-curved and cracked with age. They're not sharp, but that's the point. This isn't about killing. This is about pain, skill, dominance. Vector looks at you apologetic. You don't blame him. You grip your staff like it's a lifeline and wonder if your kidneys are insured. The whistle blows. You swing too soon. He ducks. He's faster, stronger, and definitely less emotionally conflicted. His first strike whips across your thigh hard enough to buckle your leg. You stagger, try to retaliate, miss again. He circles you like a hawk with good posture. Around you the boys cheer and chant names. Not yours. Never yours. Vector moves in again, but this time you dodge. Barely. Your staff glances off his shoulder. It's not much, but it earns a surprised grunt. Encouraged, you lunge again, this time too fast. He sweeps your legs out from under you with surgical grace. You hit the ground. Your ears ring. The sky spins. He pauses above you, breathing hard. The rules, unspoken though they are, suggest you're supposed to stay down. But you don't. Or rather, your pride doesn't let you. You scramble upright, staff trembling in your hands. Vector's face twists not with anger, but concern. He doesn't want to break you. But that's the problem. If he holds back, he looks weak. So he doesn't. The next strike hits your ribs. Hard. You crumple, gasping, staff falling from numb fingers. That's it. That's the line. He steps back. You don't get up this time. Batu walks into the ring. He doesn't lift you, doesn't check for injuries. He just nods once and walks away. That's his version of good effort. Two older boys drag you out of the circle like a busted crate. Someone gives you a snowball to press to your ribs. That's the medical department. Historically, Mongol children weren't just trained, they were tested constantly. These games were real. wrestling, stick-fighting, bone-throwing activities that shaped their instincts and bodies. Some say Genghis himself encouraged them as a way to identify which boys had potential and which needed to be well repurposed. But historians still argue were these games formalized, ritualized, or just organized chaos. Here it doesn't matter. You're too busy checking your teeth for wiggles. Later, as the games wind down, you sit with Bechter near the animal pens. He doesn't say anything. Neither do you. He just tosses you a handful of dried fruit dates, maybe. A rare treat. You chew slowly, each bite hurting your jaw but strangely comforting. He finally mutters something that sounds like sorry. You nod. It's the closest thing to friendship you'll get this week. Just before dusk, another game begins. This one's called Find the Stone. It's less violent, but more humiliating. A rock is hidden somewhere in a fenced-off patch of churned-up snow and dung. The catch, you search for it blindfolded. Everyone else gets to throw snowballs at you while you crawl. You're chosen naturally. A scratchy strip of felt is tied across your eyes. Someone spins you 3 times and then shoves you into the square. The cold bites instantly, and the ground is a nightmare of sludge and frozen hoof prints. The first snowball hits your neck, then your shoulder, then one right in the face, somehow piercing your blindfold like a missile of judgment. You lurch forward, hands groping for anything rock-like. You grab something smooth, too warm. Definitely dung. You drop it, fast. Eventually, your fingers brush a stone. Smooth, round. You clutch it like a trophy and stagger to your feet. You expect jeering more snowballs, maybe a kick. Instead, there's silence. Someone claps, just once. It's Batu. Only once, but it might as well be a standing ovation. That night, the boys share stories around the fire. Not personal ones, those are rare, but war stories, animal tales, legends. One involves a man who wrestled a bear with only one hand. Another tells of a boy who swallowed a knife on a dare. Probably fictional. Probably. You listen sore, but slightly more accepted. A boy hands you a roasted mouse on a stick. You eat it without asking questions. It tastes like smoke and victory. Later, you scratch your scalp and remember lice are still a thing. You'll deal with it tomorrow. Before bed, Batu actually speaks to you. A full sentence. Something about how even weak arms can hide sharp minds. You blink, unsure if it was a compliment or a warning. Quirky fact, Mongol kids sometimes played with sheep ankle bones, shagai, using them like dice or tokens in elaborate games. The bones had 4 sides each with a different name and meaning. It was both a toy and a fortune-telling tool. You're handed your first one tonight. A smooth, pale thing. You roll it across the dirt. It lands on the horse side. Someone nearby nods approvingly. It's the side for speed and strength. You sleep that night with the bone in your hand. It doesn't make the aches go away, but it helps. A little. The following morning greets you not with a slap or a barked order, but with something even more jarring silence. You jolt awake, convinced you've overslept an offense that usually ends with missing breakfast, or worse, a reminder from Batu's boot. But no. The sky outside the GR is still twilight blue, and the others are just beginning to stir. Turns out today's punishment is subtler. It's exhaustion. You barely slept. Not because of pain, though your ribs still hum with yesterday's bruises, but because of the noise. Mongol war camps aren't quiet at night. There's the snort and shuffle of horses, the coughs of warriors, the grating sound of someone sharpening something sharp next to your head. but, worst of all, snoring. Deep, guttural, impossibly loud snoring from someone twice your size who shares your bedding and apparently dreams of thunder. You crawl out of the tent like a dazed worm and squint at the horizon. A new campfire's been lit. Smoke curls skyward, briefly purple in the early light. The ground is hard-rimed with frost. You shuffle toward the fire, drawn by heat and the faint hope of food. You're handed a bowl, inside the usual. Bits of boiled meat floating in a gray broth slick with fat. At least it's warm. You sip slowly, trying not to think about how many meals you've had where you didn't know what animal you were eating. Could be goat, could be marmot, could be something no one names aloud. Eat faster, says a familiar voice. It's Bector, already finished and tossing the dregs into the snow. Today is sleep lessons. You blink. Sleep lessons. Did he say that right? Turns out he did. Mongol children were taught how, and more importantly, where to sleep in every possible condition. Because sleep, like everything else in the steppe, was about survival. You never knew when the next night's rest might be interrupted by a raid, a stampede, or just a thunderstorm with bad timing. So today you learn how to nap like a soldier. First lesson, nap anywhere. You're told to lie down in a ditch, not a cozy, straw-filled hollow. A literal ditch, half frozen, and still holding the memory of yesterday's storm. You lie on your sidearms, tucked, breathing shallow. You're not alone. A dozen other boys and girls are doing the same. Some look peaceful, others squirm uncomfortable. Batu walks down the line, checking posture. He doesn't want comfort. He wants silence, stillness. He kicks one boy lightly in the shin. Too much movement, he growls. You hold your breath. Second lesson, sleep with noise. Someone clangs pots. Another bangs a drum. Two boys argue loudly in Mongolic, their words overlapping like waves crashing over you. You're expected to sleep through this. You don't. Third lesson, sleep with animals. You're paired with a goat. It stinks. You lie beside it trying not to gag. It sneezes directly onto your back. You shiver, bite your lip, and pretend this is normal. Because here it is. Historians still argue whether these lessons were common or just particular to certain clans. Some believe they were psychological training. Others think it was merely practical kids had to learn to sleep whenever they could, especially during long migrations. But either way, one thing's clear. There's no bedtime story waiting for you here. No lullaby. Just the occasional grunt of a horse and a nearby warrior snoring like he's swallowing logs. At midday, the rest drills end. You're allowed to stretch piss and eat again. This time it's fermented grain mash with a sharp vinegary smell. You eat it anyway. Your stomach's stopped being picky. Afternoon drills resume. You expect archery. Maybe another wrestling match. But instead, you're handed a shovel. A tiny shovel. Today is latrine duty. If you're lucky, it's just digging holes. If you're not, it's also covering other people's mistakes. You are not lucky. For the next 2 hours, you and a few other unfortunate souls clean up what no one wants to admit exists. There are no toilets here. Just designated patches of earth and a strong communal sense of denial. The smell is indescribable. The only upside, you're too numb to care anymore. One of the boys, older and meaner, tries to shove your face near the pit as a joke. You elbow him hard in the ribs and get away with it. Batu doesn't see. Or maybe he does and just lets it slide. Small victories. After that, you scrub your hands in snow until they burn. Then it's water hauling. More buckets than you can count trudged from the nearby river. You fall twice on the ice. One bucket spills. Batu sighs deeply, and you wonder how many sighs you are away from becoming firewood. That evening, the GR is unusually full. The older warriors have returned from a scouting mission. Their presence changes the mood. Louder laughs, more drink, a stronger fire. You sit at the edge, not invited, but not banished. The warriors pass around a bottle of Arki, clear strong, and apparently able to kill bad memories. One offers it to Batu. He drinks, then offers it to the nearest boy. That boy is Bekter. Bekter takes a swig, coughs, and grins. Then he offers it to you. You hesitate. You take the tiniest sip. It tastes like regret mixed with fire. They laugh, not unkindly. Later that night, as you lay under the firs, someone asks a riddle. A game, finally. You try to follow. It's something about horses, ghosts, and a missing yurt. No one gets it. The asker laughs anyway. You drift off the riddle unsolved, the smell of goat still in your nose. And you dream. You dream you're flying, not riding, and the wind doesn't hurt anymore. You dream you're back home, whatever that means now, and someone's calling your real name. You almost remember it. Quirky fact. For today, Mongols used to keep a piece of charcoal near their beds, not for fire, but for dreams. If they had a nightmare, they'd press the charcoal to their forehead in the morning, believing it would draw out the bad spirits. The boy next to you does it tonight. You might try it tomorrow. Morning begins with screaming. Not yours this time, thankfully, but one of the younger boys near the center of the camp. He's running full speed, barefoot, pants, half on, yelling something unintelligible as a dog chases him with serious commitment. A few of the older kids chuckle. Batu doesn't flinch. The dog gives up the boy trips and the day begins. Today is for games. Again. But not training drills this time. Play. Except Mongol children play like they fight rough, creative, and terrifyingly serious. You're ushered to an open clearing dusted with snow and old hoof prints. The air smells like churned mud and whatever breakfast just boiled over the communal pot. Around you, kids are drawing lines in the dirt with sticks, laughing, jostling, and forming loose groups. Bekter jogs up to you grinning. Today, he says with theatrical flair, you die. You raise a brow. Pretend he adds. Mostly, the first game is something called Executioner's Walk. The rules are simple. A mock prisoner is blindfolded and made to kneel. The others take turns tapping him lightly with sticks. One kid is secretly chosen to deliver the execution a hard whack on the back. The blindfolded one has to guess who hit them. Guess right, and the killer becomes the next prisoner. Guess wrong. You go again. It's a blend of humor, suspicion, and surprisingly philosophical overtones. We teach justice, one older boy says, not without irony, before bopping a friend on the head with the gentle wrath of a grandmother wielding a slipper. Your turn comes quickly. You kneel, blindfolded, heart thudding. The stick taps begin soft, like teasing gusts of wind. Someone whispers near your ear. Another coughs. Then, whack. A solid blow between your shoulders. You gasp. You listen. Then you point. Wrong guess. You stay kneeling. The next blow isn't any gentler. Games here aren't for fun. They're for teaching. And right now you're learning that justice is a gamble and pain is always part of the lesson. Next up, dung dodge. The name is entirely accurate. Frozen dung clumps are thrown. You dodge or don't. Either way, everyone's entertained. You take a hit to the shin and tumble into the snow. Laughter erupts. Victor high-fives the kid who nailed you. You crawl up, wipe your face, and this time you laugh too. It hurts, but not as much as yesterday. Later, after the snow melts into slush under your soaked boots, you're invited to a game of Shagai the Ankle Bone game. You've watched it before. Boys flick sheep ankle bones across a marked board, trying to land them in certain positions. Each side of the bone has a meaning. Horse, sheep, goat, camel. Different throws, different results. Kind of like dice if dice could tell your future and were collected from someone's dinner. They let you play. You crouch beside the others, cup your handful of bones and toss. A horse, a goat, 2 camels. Lucky. Bector nods. You ride strong soon, he says. You don't know if he's teasing or predicting, but you take it as encouragement. The older kids begin a new game. This one is less fun. The loser eats dung. That's the entire name. That's the entire game. It's a wrestling match between pairs. The loser has to, well, you get it. You pray you're not picked. You are. Your opponent is a wiry kid with fast feet and a wicked smile. You square off in the mud ankle bones still clutched in your fist like talismans. Batu watches from a distance, arms crossed. The match is quick. Not instant, but quick. You hold your own, dodging, twisting, trying to use his momentum against him like you were shown. But he's faster. He flips you. You land hard. And there it is, the dread of humiliation tightening your chest more than any bruise could. You don't cry. But you don't move either. The crowd starts chanting. Not your name, obviously, but a general chorus of dung, 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 like it's a festival, and this is the main event. Victor pushes through the circle. He whispers something to the winner, slips him a scrap of jerky, and the boy shrugs. A trade has been made. You don't eat dung. You owe Bector more than you can repay. That night, while rubbing your knees and pretending the aches are growing pains, you learn something important. These games aren't just for bruises or boredom. They're an unspoken hierarchy, a language, and you're beginning to understand the grammar. Some of the older girls gather nearby to sing. Their voices are soft, low repetitive. The melody loops gently like wind brushing dry grass. The song, someone explains, is about a fox who steals a rabbit's shadow and hides it in the moon. You don't understand all the words, but the rhythm rocks you gently like your mother once did. Probably. You fall asleep to that lullaby body aching bones humming with every shove, dodge, and dive of the day. Quirky fact for tonight, Mongol children didn't just play games for fun. They were sometimes recorded as developing their own miniature war tactics through games. Some would even reenact famous battles with bone soldiers or carved wood pieces laying out terrain in the sand. There's one story about a boy who outmaneuvered his commander during play, and later became a general. Historians still argue if the story's true, or just a legend passed around to make children feel less like cannon fodder. But right now, lying on your back beneath a sagging roof, and a dozen wheezing boys, you wonder if today counted as a small battle. If so, you lost. But at least you didn't eat dung. Small victories, remember. You don't wake up on your own. A hand grabs your ankle and yanks. You hit the floor of the chair with a thud that rattles your molars. Before your brain has time to process whether this is a raid or just a horrible dream, Batu's face appears in the doorway. He grunts and tosses something at you. It lands on your chest with a wet slap. A shirt, damp, smelling faintly of blood and herbs. Today is not a game day. Outside, the sky is the color of old bone, clouded over, heavy. The air feels wrong, charged as if the wind itself is bracing for something. You dress slowly, fingers clumsy, still tender from all the archery blisters. No one speaks. Even the other boys seem quieter. There's an undertone of nervous energy, like something's coming, but no one wants to say it aloud. And then you see him, the shaman. He's not what you expect. No bones in his hair, no cloak of feathers, no glowing eyes. He's small, wiry, barefoot despite the frost. His face is painted with soot in long, careful lines, and he walks like he doesn't quite belong to the ground, like he's borrowed it temporarily. He doesn't look at anyone, not directly, but everyone clears a path for him. Someone hands you a bucket and nods toward the water cart. You join the line of children fetching ice to melt. It's busy work, but you don't argue. The adults are whispering in Mongolic voices, tense. You hear words like spirit curse and something that sounds a lot like traitor. You dump your ice into a steaming pot and find Bector crouched beside it. He leans in. "Someone stole a knife," he whispers. "From the blacksmith." You blink. That's suicide. Literally. Every weapon in this camp is accounted for. Each blade is watched, logged, and locked unless you're old enough or dead enough to be trusted with it. A missing knife means someone is planning something. An escape, an attack, a betrayal. The shaman's presence now makes sense. He's not here to chant or bless. He's here to find. The ceremony begins at noon. All the children are lined up outside the largest jur, standing in a semicircle around a small fire pit. The shaman sits cross-legged in front of it, smoke curling around him like a living thing. He doesn't speak for a long time. Then, without warning, he throws a bone into the flames. It sizzles. Everyone flinches, even Batu. He chants, low fast. The words are old. Not the Mongolic dialects you've been struggling to pick up. Older, rougher. You feel them in your spine more than your ears. Then he stands, walks to the line of children, stops at the first, stares into their face, moves on. Second, third, fourth. When he reaches you, your knees lock. Your breath sticks. He says nothing, just sniffs once, sniffs, and moves on. You don't know whether to feel relieved or insulted. Eventually, he stops in front of a boy named Od. Thin, sharp-eyed, too quiet. The shaman pulls something from his pouch, a charm made of feathers, bone, and braided hair. He places it on Od's shoulder. Od begins to cry. A few hours later, you see Od being led away. Not dragged, just led. Like someone who knows the ending before the story finishes. Historians still argue whether shamanic rituals in Mongol camps were truly spiritual or simply psychological tools. But one thing's clear, they had power. The kind of power that didn't need explanation to be effective. Just a look of charm and silence. You won't see Odd again. In the afternoon, you're told to report to the forge. This is new. The blacksmith's tent is blisteringly hot inside, the kind of heat that dries your lips just by being near it. The man himself is as broad as a yurt pole and twice as grumpy. He gestures for you to come closer and picks up your wrist like it's a piece of driftwood. He's fitting shackles, not for punishment, for sizing. You're being measured for future use. When you're old enough or useful enough, you'll be assigned specific duties. Sometimes that means guarding things. Sometimes it means carrying heavy things. And sometimes it means being chained to something or someone during a march. He slides a heavy metal ring around your wrist, nods, removes it. Then another. Then checks your neck. You realize he's measuring for collars too. just in case. You leave the forge feeling heavier even though you're not wearing anything new. Yet. You spend the evening hauling buckets of dung and wet ash. You slip, fall, and land hard on your tailbone. A girl named Saran laughs harsh but not cruel. You manage a smile back. It's the most human moment you've had all day. That night, inside the jar, you find a new item beside your bedding. A strip of horsehide, narrow, coiled. A whip, a leash, no. A bowstring. You've been issued your own. It's not fancy, not carved, not blessed by a shaman, but it's yours. The unspoken message is clear. You're not just training anymore. You're expected to perform. Vector notices, nods once. You don't sleep easily. The sounds outside are too restless. Warriors pacing, horses snorting. Something shifting in the air like a storm that doesn't involve clouds. Still, you wrap the bowstring around your hand as you drift off. It feels like a milestone, or maybe just another chain in a different shape. Quirky fact, tonight Mongol shamans believed that spirits could hide inside people's breath. That's why whispers were sacred, and why curses were spoken in a single exhale. One whispered curse could break a man's leg in battle if the wind agreed. You're not sure what the wind believes tonight, but it howls anyway. The cold bites deeper this morning, like it's been sharpening its teeth all night just for you. There's a crust of ice on your blanket. Your fingers stick slightly to the leather strap of your water pouch. You peel them off and exhale into your cupped palms, watching the breath curl upward like a ghost escaping. You're sore. Again. Still. Perpetually. Your legs feel like wooden poles, your arms like someone else's. Every joint creaks when you move. You look down at the new bowstring coiled beside you and remember the message from last night. You're no longer just training. You're now expected to produce results. The drills today are not optional, and they're not the usual ones either. Today's about refining the only 3 things that matter to the Mongol child warrior: strength aim and pain tolerance. You are unfortunately still working on all 3. First comes wrestling. No warm-up, no warning. Batu simply points at a patch of hard dirt, and 2 boys drag you into it. The other is heavier. You can tell he doesn't like you. He fights like he's got something to prove, and, unfortunately for your ribs, you're the nearest available canvas. You try everything Vector taught you: low stance, balance, breathing through your nose. It helps. For 3 seconds. Then you're flipped like a flapjack and slammed to the ground. Your head hits a rock. Stars explode behind your eyes. You don't cry. That might be the only victory here. Next, archery. You're handed your own bow. Not the brittle training ones anymore. This one is real. Horn and sinew. The draw weight is more than your shoulders want to handle, but you manage. Batu nods once. Now. The target is a hide sheet stretched between 2 posts, at least 30 paces away. You squint. The cold stings your eyes. You raise the bow notch, the arrow draw. Your arms shake. You release. It flies, arcs, thunks. Not a bullseye, but it sticks. Not bad. Not great. Batu's silence tells you it was good enough to avoid scorn, but not enough to earn praise. You shoot again. 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 The string digs into your fingers, even through the hide wraps. Your blisters split, but you keep going. Blood stains the feathers of one arrow. No one says anything. You don't stop, because the boy next to you is bleeding too, and he's still drawing. Then comes the riding drills. Fast mounts. Speed dismounts. Shooting while moving. You fail. A lot. Your horse is skittish today. ears twitching like it hears something you can't. You fall off twice. Once you get your foot stuck in the stirrup and nearly get dragged. Batu pulls you up by the collar, checks your head for cracks, and shoves you back on. Again. You try. Again. And again. Eventually, you manage one clean mount, one decent gallop, and one arrow that lands near the target. Not in it, but close. Batu squints. Then, in an unexpected move, raises his voice to the other boys. You see, even this one learns. They laugh, of course. But you hear the buried compliment beneath the mockery. By late afternoon, your body is jelly. Your brain is soup. You sit by the edge of the camp, rolling a pebble between your fingers, trying to remember the last time you weren't in pain. Bector flops down beside you. His cheek is swollen. You ride like a sack of potatoes. Better than dung, you mutter. He grins. Not much. Then he pulls something from his coat. A slingshot. Crude, made of twisted sinew and a bent stick. He loads a pebble and fires it at a passing goat. Misses. You raise a brow. Is that allowed? He shrugs. No one said it isn't. You spend the next 20 minutes launching rocks at targets, tree stumps, tent poles, dung piles. You're terrible. Bector is only slightly better. But you laugh. Actually laugh. It feels like stealing warmth from the frost itself. Then the evening lesson begins pain tolerance. You thought you understood what that meant. You didn't. The older boys gather in a ring. One of them, tall, with a face like a closed fist, carries a hot iron rod. Not glowing, but definitely warm enough to make you nervous. This, Batu says, is how you learn control. The game is simple. Hold the rod for as long as you can. It won't burn skin unless you're foolish. But it will hurt. The real lesson isn't about blisters. It's about fear. One by one, the boys take turns. Some last 2 seconds. Others 5. One boy holds it for almost 10 before dropping it and dancing around, shaking his hand with exaggerated flair. Then it's your turn. The rod is placed in your hand. It's worse than you imagined. Not fire hot, but deep hot, like touching a pot that's been sitting near a flame all day. You grit your teeth. Focus on the cold. Think about snow, ice, dung piles, anything. 3 seconds. 4. It starts to shake in your grip. 5. You drop it. Not the worst. Not the best. Acceptable. You expect pain. What you feel is pride. That night, your hand is wrapped in wet cloth. Bector gives you the last bit of his grain cake. It tastes like sour chalk. You eat it like it's dessert. You lie back under the furs, and this time, sleep comes quickly. Your muscles are too exhausted to resist. Quirky fact for tonight. Some Mongol children were trained using animal pain as example. Calves branded for marking were used to show how to endure without crying. It was believed that pain, if met with silence, gave the gods less to feed on. Historians still argue if this was widespread practice or just a brutal exaggeration passed through frightened tongues. You're not sure what the gods want from you. But tonight you gave them nothing. You wake to thunder. But not the kind from the sky. This thunder has hooves. You sit bolt upright, fumbling for your boots, heart pounding. Outside the ger, the ground trembles not metaphorically, but with actual vibrations like a mountain exhaling. The horses are already in motion, their snorts and whinnies rising in a chaotic chorus. Warriors yell. Children scramble. Someone overturns a water bucket in the panic. You shove aside the flap and crawl out into chaos. 100 horses. Maybe more. Riders, galloping in tight formations, swords, drawn not at you, but around you. A demonstration, a reminder. Today is not training. Today is a ritual. The Erk Tenger Day, Day of the Sky Spirit. You're not told what it means exactly. No one explains theology here. But you pick up pieces. It's about storms and omens and what happens when the gods want to see how well you bleed. Batu barks something in your direction, and suddenly you're swept into a line with the other boys. Not the youngest, not the oldest, just the almost usable, as one trainer once kindly phrased it. You're marched to the edge of the camp, near the largest fire pit, now covered in blackened bones and burning horse dung. Today, you're not practicing war. You're becoming it. First comes the binding. A leather strap across your right forearm, not tight, but deliberate. A cut from a ceremonial knife, not deep, but enough to bleed. The blood drips into a small bowl filled with snow and herbs. You're not alone. Every child takes the cut. Some wince, some flinch, one faints. You do neither. Batu watches. He says nothing but hands you a strip of dried hide. You don't know what it means yet, but you pocket it anyway. Could be a reward. Could be trash. Hard to tell here. The warriors ride again, this time in a circle around you. Dust rises. Chanting begins. Low rhythmic like wind in a canyon. You can't make out the words, but the tone is unmistakable reverence mixed with menace. Then come the oaths. You don't know the words, but you mimic them. Each child is prompted to raise a hand. The older ones speak first. Pledges of loyalty, strength, obedience, and most unsettlingly, silence, even if taken prisoner, even if abandoned, even if left to die. You repeat the syllables because everyone else does, and because not doing so might mean punishment far worse than pain. One warrior steps forward with a branding iron. Your breath hitches, but it's not used on you. Not yet. Instead, he marks a slab of wood for each child. Your mark is simple, a crude triangle with a slash. That's your symbol now. It will go on your arrows, your training gear. Maybe one day your grave. You're handed a piece of rawhide to chew. It keeps your jaw moving, keeps the fear from taking root. Then the sky, yes, the real sky, starts to rumble. Not loudly, not enough for a storm, just distant thunder. Like someone drumming on the clouds with ancient fists. The warriors cheer. Apparently, that's a good sign. Historians still debate whether Mongol ceremonies like this were religious, cultural, or just organized intimidation. There's evidence of rituals tied to the sky god Tengri ceremonies, blending war preparation with spiritual symbolism. Some even claim children were married to the land, metaphorically bound to defend it, as a bride defends a home. Others call that poetic nonsense. But standing here, your blood in a bowl, your voice echoing into the steppe, you believe it. Whatever this is, it matters. As the sky darkens, you're led back to the camp proper. No one speaks. The silence is its own language. You're handed food, special food. A stew thick with root vegetables, strips of real meat, and a sliver of dried fruit a luxury. You eat slowly, reverently. Even the older boys don't complain. Today isn't for jokes. The final part of the ritual takes place near the burial mound. You didn't know it was one until now. It's just a pile of stones, really. But you're told a great warrior lies beneath. His name is never said aloud, but his deeds apparently echo still. Every child is made to walk around the mound 3 times. You do so, quietly, carefully. A single feather is placed on the stones. Vector leans over as you finish your 3rd lap. It's for the ancestors, he mutters. So they see us. You nod, not trusting your voice. Later, you sit by the fire. The air is cold again. The ritual warmth fades like smoke. Batu approaches and places something in your lap. It's your training bow. Upgraded. Better material. Tighter curve. No ceremony. Just placement. You're not the worst anymore, he says. High praise. You smile. Slightly. Then look up. The stars are out. All of them. The steppe sky is vast. Unforgiving. But tonight you feel seen by it. Quirky fact, tonight Mongols believed that thunder wasn't just weather, but the gods arguing or warning. If thunder struck after an oath, it meant the gods had heard you. Some say Genghis Khan delayed a major campaign by 3 days after hearing thunder at an unexpected time. Whether that's superstition or strategy, historians still argue. But tonight, as the last rumble fades and your blood dries beneath the new wrap on your wrist, you believe the gods listened. You just hope they weren't laughing. You're woken before dawn by Batu's boot nudging your ribs, not hard, not gentle, just enough to let you know something's happening. Something different. He doesn't speak. He doesn't have to. The older boys are already moving quietly, rolling up bedding, tying bundles, slipping small blades into sleeves and boots. There's a tension in the air, not panic, but preparation. Anticipation. The way the air feels right before a lightning strike. You dress quickly, mind racing. Bector is lacing up his boots beside you. Scouting today, he says, then adds in a lower voice. But this time, real scouting. You blink at him. Your stomach clenches. Outside the camp, you ask. He nods. You've never gone beyond the patrol boundary. You've never crossed that mental fence, the invisible line between brutal training and actual irreversible danger. By the time the sun crests the horizon, you're mounted and riding. There are 8 of you. 4 older boys, 2 your age, and Batu. He doesn't explain where you're going. He just leads. The wind tears at your cheeks. The landscape blurs dry grasslands, distant rock outcrops, a herd of deer that bolts at your approach. For a moment, it almost feels like freedom. Almost. After 2 hours, the group slows near a sparse patch of woodland. The trees here are short and crooked more bushes than anything else. Batu signals a halt. He turns in, the saddle looks directly at you. Test. Just that. You dismount, heart hammering, and follow him as he pulls you into the underbrush. He crouches, brushes aside dead leaves, and points. Footprints. Not Mongol. Thinner soles. Closer together steps. Civilian. Village, he says. You go. Alone. Listen. Return. You open your mouth, but he's already walking away. You're on your own. They don't give you a map or a weapon. Just a set of instructions, sketched in silence, and a glance that says failure is not the worst possible outcome, being caught is. So you go. The trees thin as you move east, guided by the sun and the quiet. You keep low heart thudding so hard you can feel it in your throat. Every twig snap sounds like thunder. Every bird's cry makes you duck. Eventually, you crest a hill. There it is. A village, Chinese maybe, mud, brick huts, a water wheel, smoke curling from chimneys. You count maybe 20 rooftops, men hauling baskets, a woman sweeping, chickens, dogs, and a boy, your age, carrying a pot. He sees you. You freeze. So does he. A moment hangs between you like a sword suspended by a thread. You open your mouth, but nothing comes out. Then he drops the pot. It shatters, and the barking starts. You run. Not gracefully, not heroically. You run like every nerve in your body just decided to flee independently of your brain. Behind you shouting. Dogs. Maybe people chasing. Maybe not. You don't look back. You crash through the brush branches, slapping your face. You trip, recover scramble over a dry creek bed, nearly lose your footing on a slope slick with leaves. Finally, you reach the clearing. Batu is there, arms crossed, unmoved. You fall to your knees, gasping. He waits. After a minute, he crouches beside you. You were seen. You nod, still gulping air. You spoke no, you manage. He pauses, then nods once. Good. No praise. No rebuke. Just the unspoken understanding you failed, but not fatally. Barely. On the ride back, no one mocks you, which is somehow worse. Bechter asks quietly, "Did they chase you?" You nod. He offers you a strip of dried pear. You chew in silence, the sweet taste somehow clashing with the sour pit forming in your chest. That night, back at camp, you're made to sit beside the fire and recite what you saw. Batu listens carefully, correcting your descriptions. You said, "tall man." He says, "farmer, probably." Look at the feet. You said, "pot." He corrects, "walk." You realize then you didn't just fail to stay hidden. You failed to observe. You weren't sent to test your courage. You were sent to prove you could see. Historians still argue how often Mongol children were used as spies. Some claim they served only in safe zones. Others believe boys as young as 8 were sent into enemy villages dressed in rags, taught to cry on command, and ask for rice while noting guard posts. There's no agreement, only fear-shaped fragments passed down by those who lived to tell them. You lived. Barely. Before bed, you lie staring at the roof of the chair. You think about the village boy, his face, how close you were, how he dropped the pot. Did he know? Was it fear, pity, or recognition? Quirky fact tonight, the Mongols had no formal word for spy in the early days. The closest term was narin-kyu, meaning quiet thread. Those selected were not always warriors. They were chosen for memory silence and a face that disappeared into crowds. Some were never seen again. Tonight, wrapped in furs, you understand why. You're not afraid of dying in battle anymore. You're afraid of being forgotten. You've barely slept. The events of yesterday loop endlessly in your mind. The boy's face, the broken pot, the barking dogs, Batu's stare. Even the cold doesn't bite as hard as your own thoughts now. Every twig snap outside the gear jolts you upright. You've officially entered a new phase of camp life hyper-awareness, and just in time for your next test. Today, Batu gives no warning, no briefing. He simply walks up to the cooking fire as you're gnawing on a hunk of old meat, jerks his chin toward you, and gestures with one hand downward. You look. There's a prisoner tied to a wooden post in the middle of the training yard. He's not a boy. A grown man, maybe mid-30s, disheveled, bruised, but still breathing. His hands are bound behind his back, his ankles too. One eye swollen shut, torn robes. You recognize the fabric Chinese. The other boys gather, forming a half circle around the post. Some are smiling, some aren't. The older ones already know what's about to happen. You swallow hard. Batu steps forward, holding a knife. Not a practice knife. The real kind. He doesn't hand it to you. He throws it at your feet. It lands in the dust blade, first quivering. "Cut," he says. Just that. Not kill, not practice, just cut. You don't move. He waits. The man tied to the post is awake. He's looking at you. Not pleading, not angry, just watching. Measuring. You hear Bechter's voice behind you low. Don't hesitate. If you don't, someone else will. And that's when it clicks. This isn't about the prisoner. This is about you. about whether you're ready to become not just a trainee, not just a tool, but a weapon. You step forward, heart hammering like a war drum in your chest. The knife feels heavier than it should. You crouch, fingers brushing the hilt. It's cold, clean, real. You pick it up, walk toward the post. Your feet crunch in the frost-dusted dirt. Every step is louder than the last. The world seems to narrow until all you see is rope wood and that man's eyes. You pause, then lower the blade. You press the tip to the rope around his wrists. You cut it. Gasps erupt behind you. The man blinks, confused. You step back. He doesn't move. Batu approaches slowly. His boots sound like thunder. You brace for the blow. It doesn't come. Instead, he picks up the knife, hands it to Bector, and points at the prisoner. Bector hesitates, but only for a breath. Then he steps forward. You look away. There is no cheer, no applause, just silence. Later that day, you're back to hauling firewood. No special punishment, no lecture, just more chores, more silence. Bector finds you by the water barrel. You hesitated, he says. I didn't kill him, you reply. He shrugs. Someone had to. You don't speak again for hours. At night, the GR is heavy with unspoken questions. No one mentions the post. No one mentions the knife. But everyone knows. You lie awake, eyes open in the dark. Did you fail? Did you pass? You don't know. Historians still debate whether Mongol children were required to kill captives during training. Some sources say no killings were reserved for adults. Others say yes, that young warriors were made to execute enemies to steal their nerves. It's one of those historical shadows, vague and uncomfortable, intentionally obscured by the people who survived it. You're not sure what today was. A lesson. A trap. A line crossed quirky fact. Some Mongol executions were done with the no-blood rule throttling or breaking necks because blood was considered sacred. Shedding it on the ground was taboo in certain rituals. You wonder if your refusal was seen as respectful or weak. That night, you bury the knife in the snow outside the gyr. You hope no one sees, but somehow you think Batu already knows, and that scares you more than the blade ever did. You dream of the man's face. Not his body, not the blood, just the way he looked at you, calm, resigned, as if he already knew how the story ended and had nothing left to argue about. You wake before dawn, heart-hammering face damp with sweat. The GR is silent. For once, no snoring. Even the horses outside are still. You lie still for a while, eyes open, breath shallow. Eventually, the others begin to stir. No one mentions yesterday. No one has to. You wear it now on your silence, your shoulders, your skin. You think maybe today will be quiet. You're wrong. By midday, the entire camp shifts like an animal stretching before a hunt. Horses are saddled. Armor is brushed clean, arrows counted. Even the older boys are somber, their usual teasing replaced with silent glances and double-checked gear. You're handed your bow, your upgraded one. The one Batu gave you after the Oath Day. You ask nothing. They explain nothing. And then you ride. It's not a raid, not a real one anyway. It's what the older warriors call a celebration, a small campaign, a lesson wrapped in blood and meat and smoke. You ride for nearly 2 hours before reaching a village so small it barely qualifies. A few huts, a cart, smoke curling from cook fires. People scatter the moment they hear the hoofbeats. The warriors dismount. The children, including you, watch. Then the looting begins. They don't kill. Not today. This is a warning raid. They take food, blankets, tools, even a few goats. One boy sets a hay pile on fire just for fun. Another tries to grab a rooster and it attacks him. Everyone laughs, loud, nervous, manic. You don't move. A woman runs past you clutching a baby. Her eyes lock with yours for a second. Then she's gone. You want to look away, but you don't. Batu's voice behind you. Mark this. You turn. He points to a tree. A corpse hangs from it. Already there before you arrived. Sun bleached, arms tied, head lolling. A message left by someone else. Maybe another tribe. Maybe last week. Maybe longer. Victory leaves signs, Batu says. So does fear. You nod. Or at least you think you do. When the wagons are full, the warriors signal retreat. You ride home slower. The mood is strange, not triumph, but something close. Like a feast after a funeral. Laughter, yes, but forced. Relieved. Back at camp, the fire is already roaring. The spoils are laid out, cheese meat, even a few precious honey cakes. The kids cheer at the sight of them. One boy starts to dance. Another beats a pot with a spoon. Then comes the drinking. Not for you, not yet. But the older teens get small cups. Arki again. Fermented milk that burns all the way down. They toast, shout names of ancestors, brag loudly about imaginary victories. You sit beside Bector, chewing on a stick of roasted goat. He says nothing for a long while. Then you didn't take anything. You shake your head. He doesn't push it. Later, the warriors begin the shadow games. Reenactments of the day's glory. Boys act out the raid in exaggerated motions. One pretends to be the goat thief chased by a particularly vengeful rooster. Another mimics the warrior who tripped on his own sword. Everyone laughs, even you. The tension thaws just a little. Then a final game, whisper death. It's simple. One boy begins a story, just a sentence. The next adds to it. Then the next. The goal. Make it scary, vivid, and twisted, but never loud. It's a competition of who can speak the darkest tale in the softest voice. Tonight, the story is about a boy who steals from a war camp. He takes a knife, uses it, then buries it in the snow. Your stomach flips. You glance at Batu. He's looking right at you, but then he smiles, just a little, and nods to the storyteller to continue. Maybe it's coincidence, maybe not. After the games, you lie beneath the firs, staring up at the roof poles. The scent of smoke clings to your hair. Your belly is full, but your heart feels hollow. You remember the laughter, the dancing, the goat. But you also remember the woman, and the child, and the tree. Historians still argue whether Mongol children were allowed to witness raids or took part. Some sources say they stayed behind. Others claim they rode in the rear, observed everything, and were taught to remember exactly what they saw to mark it on their soul. A different kind of wound, a mental blade. Quirky fact. After successful raids, Mongol children were sometimes given tokens from the loot, a belt buckle, a hair comb, or even a piece of mirror. These were status symbols, proof that you'd been there, that you were part of the war machine now. You received none of that, but you keep the image of the woman's eyes. That's enough. Tomorrow the adults will ask what you remember. You wonder what you'll say. The next morning your mouth tastes like ash, not from fire, from the memories. You sit with your back to the Jier knees drawn up bow across your lap. Around you the camp is slow to stir. Most of the older boys are nursing headaches or bruised egos from the celebration. A few haven't even gotten up yet. Their voices slurred with drink, their laughter trailing off into coughing fits sometime after midnight. But Batu is already moving. He always is. and today he seems especially focused. Line up, he says. Just 2 words. Quiet. Final. You stand. So does Bector. So do the others, some groaning, some half awake. But no one disobeys. Today is demonstration day. It's not for you, it's for visitors. A distant cousin of one of the warlords has arrived, some high-cheekboned teenager in silk robes and a fox fur hat too clean to be real. He's surrounded by guards with actual swords, their faces unreadable. He doesn't speak. He just watches, sipping from a metal cup with a pinched look that makes you want to knock it from his hand. You're told to ride. Not just ride, display. Mounted archery, fast dismounts, coordinated gallops. You're not ready. No one says it, but you feel it. Your hands are stiff. The skin between your thumb and forefinger is cracked. You haven't practiced under pressure. But none of that matters now. You're expected to perform like a warhorse. Your turn comes. You mount quickly clean. That's something. Batu tosses you a quiver. You sling it across your back ride to the start point and wait for the signal. A sharp whistle. Then go. Your horse surges forward. You press your knees into its flanks, grip the reins, tight draw your bow. 1 shot. Miss. You grit your teeth. 2nd shot. Hits the outer ring of the target. Not good. Not terrible. The 3rd arrow skims just over the target, clipping a banner. A few of the boys stifle laughter. You feel your face burn. Then it happens. As you begin to slow, your horse stumbles. Your body lurches. You try to recover, but the saddle slips. You crash to the ground in a tangle of limbs and leather bow flying from your hand. The crowd is silent for a moment. Then scattered laughter. A cough. One of the silk-robed visitors whispers something and his guards smirk. You lie there, breath knocked out, pride shattered like thin ice. Batu appears beside you. He doesn't help you up. Get on, he says. You do. Slowly. Quietly. Bleeding from one elbow, humiliated, blinking back tears you won't let fall. The rest of the demonstrations continue without incident. Bector does well. Too well. He hits every shot. His horse doesn't stumble. He dismounts clean. The visiting noble applauds faintly. That night, there's no fire, no songs, no games. You sit by the edge of the camp, knees tucked under your chin. Batu finds you. Sits beside you without speaking. For a long time, there's only wind. Then, do you know what Genghis did the first time he fell off a horse? You shake your head. He got back on. Then he fell again. You glance over. How many times Batu shrugs. Enough. You want to believe that's wisdom. But it feels like a consolation prize. He stands. You don't have to be the best, he says. You just can't disappear. The words hit you harder than the ground did. Later, you clean your bow. Slowly. Carefully. You check the string. Straighten the feathers on your arrows. Your fingers tremble. Bector sits nearby tossing shagai bones at the dirt. He doesn't say anything, just pushes a small pouch toward you. Inside, honeyed nuts, a peace offering, or maybe a reminder that you're still here. Quirky fact, Mongol riders often competed in public games to show off for nobles and warlords. But failure wasn't always punished unless you quit. Pride could be bruised. But quitting, that was remembered. Some accounts tell of boys who fell 3 times in front of Khan's court and still earned a place because they stood up 4 times. Historians still argue whether that's literal or just motivational legend. But right now, sitting in the cold, bruised and ashamed, you decide to believe it. You roll a shagai bone. It lands on the sheep's side, gentle, soft-footed. You smile. Slightly. Tomorrow you'll ride again. But for now, you rest. The morning is mercifully quiet. No shouting. No boots to the ribs. Just the soft murmur of wind across the plains and the creak of leather as you stretch your sore limbs. You blink at the dawn light filtering through the Gier's seams, dreading the moment your feet hit the frozen earth. But today feels different. Not better, just different. When you step outside, the camp is already moving. There's no ceremony, no special gathering, but you can feel it something is ending, or beginning. It's hard to tell with this life. Cycles blur, bruises fade, days bleed into each other like ink on old hide. Batu is waiting near the horse pen. He's got your bow, your quiver, and something else, a small folded tunic. Not new, but cleaner than usual. He tosses it to you without a word. You catch it. Look down. It's stitched with a symbol. Your symbol. The crude triangle with the slash, the one burned onto the wood slab during Oath Day. It's on the chest, just over the heart. You don't know what to say. So, you say nothing. Mount Batu says. You do, easily this time. The horse doesn't flinch. You ride with a small group Bekter Saran and 2 older boys whose names you never learned, but who've always nodded at you in passing. Batu leads. This isn't a raid. It isn't training. It's a pass-through. A wide loop across the plains skirting the edges of known territory. A way to test your readiness, your independence. There's no lesson here, only observation and survival. The sky is endless. Your breath fogs in the air. The ride is long, cold, quiet. Then an interruption, a shape on the horizon, a cluster of riders, unfamiliar, flags you don't recognize. Your group slows. Batu raises a hand. He watches, waits, then nothing. The riders turn, disappear. Tension fades, but your heart keeps hammering. That night you set up camp beneath a cliff. You collect kindling. You light your own fire. You boil your own water. No orders, no instructions. Batu just watches. Around the fire, Bekter nudges you. You didn't fall today. You smirk. Yet, he tosses you a piece of dried apple. You catch it. Later, you sleep under the stars. No chair, no roof, just the wind, the fire, and the sound of distant wolves. You wake before sunrise. No nightmare this time. Just calm. The ride back is faster, confident. The horses seem lighter, and so do you. When you return to camp, Batu doesn't even look at you. He just mutters, "You've lasted." Not congratulations, not praise, but recognition, and that's enough. That evening there's no feast, no dancing, no whispered ghost stories. Just you, Bekter, and a piece of stolen honey cake you share without speaking. Historians still debate how many Mongol children completed training. Some say only half made it to adolescence. Others believe the numbers are skewed, lost in myth, legend, or just bad memory. But one thing remains constant in every account: those who did survive, who lasted, were changed. You are changed. You've stopped wondering who you were before the camp. You're no longer just a child. You're something sharper, tougher, quieter. Not a warrior, not yet, but not prey either. Quirky fact. The Mongols believed that to name a child too early was to tempt fate, that the spirits might notice and take interest too soon. Many children were given joke names, ugly, silly, forgettable, until they'd proven themselves worthy of a true identity. Maybe Orlok wasn't a joke after all. Maybe it was a test. And maybe now, you've earned the right to choose your own name. And now the fire dims. The wind, once biting, softens to a low hush, rustling gently through the grass outside your tent. The shouts, the hoofbeats, the barking of dogs. They all fade into the quiet murmur of sleep and memory. You lie on your mat, the aches in your arms and legs pulsing less urgently now like echoes rather than alarms. Your tunic smells of sweat and wood smoke. Your bow is tucked beside you, its shape familiar, its presence oddly comforting. You stare up at the dark canvas above, tracing the seams, watching the flicker of firelight dance across them like ghost stories. You think of Bekter's laugh, of Batu's nod, of the boy in the village, the blood on your hands, the bone wolf in your pocket. It all lives with you now. Threads in a worn but sturdy tapestry. The worst parts didn't break you. The best parts didn't blind you. You lasted. The wind outside whistles across the open steppe, an old song older than war, older than names. Maybe tonight the spirits hear you differently. Not as a child, not as a guest, but as someone who's still here. And, as your eyes drift closed, your breath slows. The jar is quiet. The fire is low, and the steppe, endless and indifferent, folds you into its silence once more. Sleep, little warrior. You made it through the day.